2017 GT Racing kicks off here with the Blancpain GT Series Sprint Cup at Misano in Italy. A beautiful day, slightly clouding up after an epic morning. Spring sunshine in Italy, Ferraris on circuit, but so many more. John Watson and I will be taking you through this first qualifying session of the season. 34 cars coming out to play on the circuit Marco Simoncelli. 4.226 kilometres, John. 16 corners, not a lot of space in which to go playing and set a super quick time. And don't forget, it's 15 minutes, 7 minutes off, 15 minutes, and those final 10 minutes, it's going to be really quick fire.
It'll be very busy indeed. And of those 16 corners, there are really two that the drivers have got to be uber careful about, because on the exit of turn 6, there's a lot of scope to run wide in the exit, and then the very final corner, turn 16, likewise. And drivers have been warned, and they've been penalised through the running in free practice 1 and 2 on Friday, and they have to be very careful today. If somebody transgresses, their time will be discounted, and of course with tyres at a premium when they're new, that's a big penalty.
Now, one of the things that is definitely new for 2017 is the first chance to see a driver running wide. That's the first of the two drivers. They're a young crew in this. This is the Reiter Young Stars. So it's Marco Helister-Kangas, 59 McLaren, also going wide. The drivers know they have to run as close to the edge as they can get. But turn 6 and 16, the similarities, they're both quickish left-hand kinks, but the curbs are flat on the exit. And I have heard at 6 and 16, and one other corner, they've been slightly reprofiled. And the drivers are going to have to really watch, not just for transgressions, but transgressions that could maybe start to trouble their tyres.
Yeah, part of the trouble here at Misano, the circuit is named after the great Italian motorcyclist Marco Simoncelli, who tragically lost his life in 2011. But because this is a dual-purpose racetrack for race cars and motorcycles, then the curbing tends to be very much flatter than on racetracks that are just dedicated to car racing.
So we're taking a chance to ride on board with the number 1, the championship winning car in the Sprint Cup last year, Enzo Ida, sharing that with Christopher Mies. And again, I'm just trying to pick up where they are on the circuit. They've gone through the first sector. You can see their time through that, 29.4. So they're 2/3 the way round the lap. This is turns coming up to Cavone, very fast right hand, another right hand kink here. Lots of runoff to the left of the screen, John, then down into the hairpin, which is turn 14.
Yeah, it's always an opportunity to pass, and you can run wide on the outside. Nobody will be penalised, but into turn 14, which you're in now, if you're not alongside, you're not going to get it done. This quick little flick, turn 15, again, is all about getting track position for the final turn 16, the corner that you can get caught out on. And just watch the number 1 Audi leaving plenty of room, and clearly not on a hot lap right now as it comes across start-finish line.
Letting one of the ACA ASP Mercedes go through. There are 4 of those this year. So that was Enzo Ida, last year's Sprint Cup champion, at the wheel of the number 1 Audi. He's 11th out of the 13th who've set flying laps. The 89 Mercedes, Christophe Bourret, 4th fastest so far, but the time's changing super fast at the moment. But with these new Pirellis, of course the drivers have tested on them, but often in conditions not as warm as it is today. But how good are they? For how many laps will there be absolutely on point? Some of the drivers reckon with the old tyres, the 2016 type of tyres, they had 2 chances, 1 lap, 2 lap, and then it was over. This time they think they might be able to run the whole way through the session. It doesn't seem to be as peaky, but we'll find out.
We'll find out. I think one of the areas that we're going to have a little bit of interest in is the difference how the tyre reacts and performs to, well, take for example the ACA Mercedes-Benz coming through here, as opposed to the mid-engine, the GTs, the Audis, the McLarens, the Ferraris and others. And I got the impression, talking to 1 or 2 drivers today, that those in this car, the Mercedes, be it the HTP car or the ACA Mercedes-Benz, they feel maybe once they get into that middle period of tyre running, they're a bit kinder on their tyres than the mid-engine cars might be. We have to see, and in qualifying probably not going to come into play, but certainly later this evening could be a major factor in who can do what in that 1-hour sprint race.
Well, at the moment, we've got Marcus Finkelhoff using all that experience to be fastest, but we have a message to the bottom stream. Car number 59, lap cancelled for exceeding track limits at turn 6, one of the 2 corners you nominated.
And I have to say, and I'm sorry to say, it's my countryman who shares the same name, but Andrew Watson. So he is the man behind the wheel of the 59 car, sharing with Rob Bell. That's a big step up for Andrew, because he's going with an extremely experienced and capable driver, Rob Bell. So Andrew will have to maybe begun to the career that he had hoped and dreamt about really is starting this year alongside the much more experienced and highly talented Rob Bell.
Car number 5, looking out at the moment, that's second on the time charts. At the wheel we have Marcel Fessler, the Swiss driver, coming across to the World Endurance Championship. Very, very strong pairing. That will be with Dries van Tor. But just touching back on Rob Bell, he was saying, of course, as the pro driver, if you stay on the track completely, don't try and transgress a little bit, come in your 25th quickest, you haven't done your job. So they're walking a tightrope, but he'll be out in the second session. And at the moment, 6th fastest, it is Andrew Watson, number 5, top of the charts at the moment. Marcel Fessler has just gone faster than the team car, the sister car, number 2, Will Stevenson, Marcus Finkelhock.
Yeah, just that camera angle. There's the number 8 Bentley, Maxim Soule and Andy Soucek. Bentley, one of the few teams that have maintained driver pairings from 2016 into 2017. Most other teams that raced last season have found new partners to maybe their pro drive or to their silver, but in some cases their bronze driver. But the Bentley team has got the continuity, as does the championship-winning pairing of Enzo Eid and Christopher Mies. A great pairing, that.
Well, there's Malcolm Wilson deep in a lot with Andy Soucek alongside him, proving it's Maxime Soule at the wheel of the number 8, deep in the heart of the Bentley pit. But don't forget, of course, Vincent Abril in the sister car, thanks John, has moved up to 3rd fastest, under half a second down on the ultimate pace, and number 8 is 5th quickest. So looking good in these early stages, but wide over the curbs and beyond goes that number 8 Bentley. How good was that lap time?
Stays the same.
It goes second fastest.
Oh, second, okay. Yeah.
So we've got a problem. You know, sometimes if you run a lot of cars in the Audi camp, it's the number 3 cars that got the problem. Now, Jake Tennis, Peter Schothorst, they had the problem yesterday as well.
This is the car that they had a fire of this car last night in the evening nighttime session. So the team have been working absolutely flat out to repair the car.
Yeah, but look at the clock, 6.5 minutes. They've got to get out there and do something.
It's going to be very, very difficult, I think, to see that car getting out on track. Here we've got now what often happens. You get bunching all around the circuit. Drivers on flying laps. There's the 86 HTP car of Jimmy Eriksson and Dominic Baumann, of course, co-champions in previous years, last year.
Last year, but of course they've been split. We talk about splits. Buch and Baumann have been split, and they will be driving respectively with Jimmy Eriksson and Franck Pereira. And at the moment, it's 0.3 of a second between top and 1st and 3rd. It's still the number 5 Audi at the top of the charts, but other people trying to make their space on the track. The 86 crew, of course, we just mentioned Baumann and Buch, but this is the car in between, if you will. That's Jules Simkowiak and Fabian Schiller trying to earn their corn as they develop their craft. Look out for Schiller through this year, young driver.
Frank Pereira, you know, last year he was on an Audi, the year before he was on a Porsche, now he's in a Mercedes-Benz. I spoke to Maximilian Buch at lunchtime and he said, Frank Pereira is mega quick. Let's see, he comes across the line, what he can do. Well, at number 84.
Top, goes top, John.
Top, indeed.
That'll do nicely.
And he's on an 132.888, which is actually, so far now, the single quickest lap over the course of all the running that we've had.
Right.
So Frank Pereira delivering as the team anticipated when they took him under contract.
Looking to see, as we ride on board the 59, the name you need to look for is Watson at the moment, bottom right-hand side of the screen. And he was 6th, he's still 6th, maybe 3/4 of a second down on the ultimate pace. You can see he's a far end of the lap, that's turn 14. Now you go up through the kink at turn 15. Quite featureless at this point, the giant grandstands on the left. Then up to this final corner. Let's see if we ride with him, how much he goes out over the curbs. We're watching Andrew. Let's say here first. Some hit the curb on the inside and got spat out there. That's very tidy, conservative.
That's well within anybody's limits. So Andrew, who's now actually finished all his studies, he's working in the family business and contributing to the budget to ensure that he can run for all, both sprint and endurance events for the 2017 season. Still Frank Pereira, quickest overall, only man into the 1 minute 32 second bracket. And second place, number 5, Belgian Audi car, Marcel Fessler, who's not made any further progress after that early quickest lap that he held.
Yeah, well, Vincent Abril, another good lap, but he's slipped now down to 6th place overall. More drivers being pinged for track limits. Car number 90, the latest. That's Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello. They've lost their fastest time so far. So again, the drivers are going to be watching and listening and working out how many drivers are getting pinged and how much they can afford to risk. Stephen Kane in the middle, looking and listening. Andy Soucek getting his helmet, getting himself sorted out. He will be out for the second session, 15 minutes, a 7-minute gap, and then take over.
Of course, what happens is that you get an amalgamation of the Q1 and Q2 times, and that will determine then the final 17 cars that will be out on track for the in effect, would just be called the top 10 grid position, but now it's going to be the top 17.
Yeah, well, the top half of the grid, 34 cars. Do the maths as you have, John. Right, BMW haven't shown their hand enormously well so far. 98, that's the Finnish pairing. Marcus Paltala, and the driver at the wheel of the 98 BMW M6 at the moment is Jesse Krohn, down in 15th place. He needs to find 1.1 seconds to get right up at the sharp end. But in fact, what we need to do, John, is I suppose, consider the top 17 in each. But it's the aggregate of Session 1 and Session 2 that gets added together for all of the cars to determine who will be in the top half of the grid. But at the moment, it's the best lap so far for the 98 crew, but Jesse Krohn will be desperate to pick himself up the order.
Surprisingly to me, neither BMW of Row Racing looked particularly quick in both those free practice sessions on Friday afternoon and then Friday evening. And let's hope they can pick up the pace. And other incidental fact, one driver who was a part of GT racing in the Blancpain GT Championships last year was Sean Walkinshaw, who drove for the Nissan. He's now racing in Japan in the GT300 series, and he's in one of these BMWs. He said the car handles great, but because the Nissan, the grunt that the Nissan had, just unbelievable. So the balance of the car, the BMW has got great handling, a more modern car, but not quite that ultimate, how many horsepower the Nissan had or the torque that it had.
Adrian Zaud, good to see him back in a regular drive. Of course, he was one of the stars of the A1 GP series so long ago, that country by country, nation by nation single-seater championship. He is down in 19th place, one of the two Attempto Racing Lamborghinis. A new mover at the top, number 86, has suddenly popped in at the sharp end, and that's Jimmy Eriksson sharing with one of last year's overall champions, Dominic Baumann. So HTP Motorsport Mercedes crew really starting to wind it up.
Yeah, I mean, they felt confident. Certainly, speaking to Maximilian Buch, I got the feeling, though he said, we don't think we've got any significant advantage on a brand new set of tyres, but we do think that we've got an advantage once you get over that initial performance gain with the new tyre. But really, it's more on those longer runs, and you're not going to see that in qualifying because we've now only got a minute 20 to go. But certainly come the first of our two events this evening, that 1 hour nighttime event, and of course track temperatures and ambient temperatures will be significantly lower than they will currently be, as we are sort of roughly coming up to 2:30 in the afternoon.
Sitting here looking at the 333 Ferrari, of course, this car for now, Rinaldi Racing, or a forerunner 2 years ago, won the event here, but total change out. No longer Marco Friedrich, no longer Norbert Siedler. This year it's Alexander Matschel and Daniel Kalvitz, a driver I think we really need to watch this year, running in Pro-Am, but going faster and faster, and in that situation, wider and wider.
Yeah, I mean, that's going through turn 8. I mean, absolutely all four wheels right off. A lot of cars have been doing that in all the various different categories. It looks a fairly straightforward corner when you just give it an eyeball, but actually it is easy to make a mistake in it, and for some reason we saw there the Ferrari 333 just running way wide, all four wheels right off the track, followed by, I think that might be the 86 Mercedes, which is the car currently driven by Jimmy Eriksson, which is in third place. He doesn't need to run behind another car, he's going to go slow. In fact, the Ferrari just pulls over and lets it get through. That was the 85 Mercedes, not the 86. So that was the car driven by Fabian Schiller and Jules Simkowiak. And that's another car. Simkowiak is a carryover from last year. Frank Schiller is a young guy coming through, single-seater,
very promising.
highly rated.
Very promising. He's when you have a very short career, you see each year they've done better and better. He's definitely going the right way for the single-seaters. Right, let's ride with Andrew Watson. He was 6th quickest early on. Where is he on our time charts? He's dropped 2 places, 0.6 of a second down on the ultimate pace. But again, John, just talk us through this very twisty, the early stage of the lap.
Yeah, okay, coming out of turn 3. Turns 1 and 2 are more about being clean, neat, tidy. You can release the car through 3, then into this combination of 4, 5. It really is one corner. Here, into turn 6, you're carrying a lot of speed. Clean exit, didn't abuse it. Now you've got a curve, you can barely see it. Well, there it is, just by the bridge stanchions. Then onto the brakes into turn 8. Now get an indication. You want to turn in where Andrew is doing. That to me looks about what I consider to be the ideal line. But there are more versions of the ideal line from all 20 or 34 cars here this weekend than you'll probably see in any other single corner on this racetrack. Yeah, now up into turn 10 and onto what you might loosely describe as the back straight, but it comprises in effect 3 curves, the final of which, turn 13, is the one where you can get caught out because you're carrying a lot of speed through the first of these 3 curves, flat out. Coming up to the second one, absolutely flat out. Now you're looking at turn 13, and then immediately you're on the brakes. You've got to turn to get the car settled, get the back of the car stable. Then into turn 14, run the car out to the curb. Again, conservative in the use of track there. 15 is just more about lining the car up to get the best possible entry into the pit lane. Now, we didn't expect that one, did we?
Well, luckily the checkered flag was out, so I was rather hoping he would come in.
I suppose we were all so focused on what was going on, but indeed. But that was a good lap all the way around. Team will get good information, tyre temperature in particular. So sometimes drivers, when the flag is out, they say, oh, thank goodness, catch their breath, do all the things they have to do. So when they get into the pits, they look calm and composed. So,
well, quite a few of the teams, John, had already brought their cars in with about 3 or 4 minutes to spare to get them ready for the second set of drivers, so they have a longer time in between to adjust the cars.
But the reason they do that as well is if they don't need to do any more laps, save the tyre. It's all about making sure the tyres that you have available for the next session, and then the third will be the grid deciding session, and then what you will need for this evening. You've got to make a mandatory pit stop. You want to have at least one brand new set of tyres available for each of the 2 races.
Talking tyres, again, we're on Pirelli rubber, but this year, as we discussed earlier, these P0s are to a new format, and a lot of the drivers will have found in that session driving on them really in anger for the first time. They've done a bit of testing, but today's warmer than any of the testing days. They might be nicely surprised, but they could also be horrified that they're not performing the way they wanted to. And they've got to learn these tyres. Yes, to the layman, they're round, black things, but to these drivers, they can detect the tiniest of performance changes, and that is why so much conversation has to go on between one driver and another. That's Max van Splunteren, who's on board this year in the championship, talking to his teammate.
Yeah, the taller considerably of the two.
Yeah, so quick change. One of the cars we just saw was the Spirit of Race team, Phil Quaife and Lorenzo Caso. We saw Lorenzo sitting on board, so they already made the driver change, so he will try and get right out at the very beginning of the session. Number 5, Audi. Marcel Fessler was fastest for quite a while. He's just handed over now to Dries van Toor, second fastest at the end of the session.
Yes, Dries van Toor, the younger brother of Laurens van Toor, who was so much a part of the Blancpain GT series, both sprint and endurance. He's moved on to a new manufacturer and a new championship. So we're not going to see Laurens van Toor, in my view, anywhere other than possibly, and it will depend on whether the team he's with decides to enter into Spa 24. And I would think it would be fantastic to have one of Belgium's leading drivers in that 24-hour race.
And I think when we look at how the competition is getting tighter and tighter, last night in the second free practice session, we had the top 18 cars covered, or was it 22? 22 covered by the top 1 second. It's getting closer and closer. When he comes back, if he comes back for Spa, he'll find the whole level has come up to meet him, and which is just absolutely tribute to everyone involved.
Bruce, when we were in last year at Paul Ricard, and Magnussen, Kevin's father, what's his name? What's Kevin's father's name? Magnussen.
Jan
Magnussen.
He threw me off the...
Yes, Jan Magnussen. When he came and took part in that 6-hour race, and he'd been competing in the American GT championships and their endurance events, he was totally blown away by the level of competition. And I think he said, it's fantastic, I'd love to do more of it, but just, you think maybe what they do in America would be the ultimate. Well, it's not. This is as close as any team or any race series can get to the ultimate GT3 championships anywhere in the world.
Oh dear, car number 84 was fastest of all. It's had 2 of its laps. It's now under investigation for lap 4. It had lap 3 removed, so maybe the best time by Franck Pereira of 1 minute 32.867 seconds will be removed. We don't know, but anyhow, that's how fast we've seen them travel.
In fairness to the timing and scoring, we did see that Franck Pereira, coming to the end of one of his laps, did use an awful lot of the exit of turn 16, and that's one of the 2 corners that will be under great scrutiny from the race steward, the race director, to see if drivers are taking an advantage. Ordinarily, the view was if you ran so far wide on the exit of 16, the distance you travel, the extra distance was offset by you end up the time that you would have achieved. So it's always a moot point: is there an advantage or isn't there an advantage? But I think in the interest, and certainly I'm a staunch supporter of respecting track limits, and Rob Bell made the point abundantly clear that if you stick to track limits to the letter of the racetrack, you will be slow. So it's just a matter of how far can you edge towards what is acceptable, what's unacceptable, before your time is deleted.
I think they get a verbal warning, a written warning, and then that's that. Your time is removed, but a lot of drivers will have found out where the limit is because they've exceeded it. But they're racing drivers, they're competitive creatures. That is what they do. It's a balance. We talked about the Reiter young stars, and there is the Caitlin Wood and Marco Helis de Cangas, the Finnish racer, and the Aussie racer is Caitlin. And this would be a big learning experience. They've done the GT4 European Series in KTM crossbows, proved to be the best of, I think, 8 KTM crossbow crews. Their prize is to race in this. And we talked about how the standard in the Blancpain GT Series rises and rises. They've got to keep chasing it this year, so expect them to learn as they go. But what a fantastic challenge to have.
Yes, I mean, maybe this the challenge is slightly mitigated by the fact that she is driving what is the Lamborghini Gallardo, which is the former model in the Lamborghini range. The Huracan is the current one, so the car isn't going to be at the very sharp end in terms of its ultimate performance or pace, but it's a great way to get your toe into this world of Blancpain GT3 series, both endurance and sprint, and move forward from that. So slightly less pressure possibly because of the car being that little bit further behind in development terms compared to the current Huracan.
So we've had the 7-minute break in between session 1 and session 2. This again is another 15-minute session at the top of the screen. You can see we've got just over 14 minutes remaining. And then we have another very short break indeed, and then it's time to go out for the top half of the timesheet, to go out for a final 10-minute shootout. We've had the drivers already nominated for that, but again, as we had in the first session, John, it's about making your space in traffic, and maybe by being up by the exit of the pit lane. Belgium Audi Club Team WRT have got 2 of their Audis out in first and third positions in the group of cars as they go around. Maybe that will work in their advantage. Certainly, it's not something to be sniffed at.
When you've got 34 cars all trying to find space on a racetrack, remember it's only 4.2 kilometres around, 2.5 to 2 3/4 miles, and it's a 16-corner racetrack. There's not a lot of scope to get that clear lap on every single corner. So it is a lot about experience and reading what's going on, getting it right timing-wise, and just hoping that as you begin your lap or you conclude your lap, you're not going to run into a car that's doing the same thing.
Now, going too fast too soon is one thing. Cars 2 and 5, I just mentioned about them, BMW Audi Club being very close to pit exit. They were in the fast lane before the fast lane was open, so 2 and 5 could have something knocked against them before they've even turned a wheel.
I mean, it's when there are regulations and they're there to be adhered to. That's the first time I've actually seen that particular one about the fast lane not being open at the point when the pit lane is open. So there we are.
So that's Dries Van Tor. We've talked about it. We're looking at him, and he is one who's possibly been pinged, and it'll be Will Stevens in the number 2. Anyhow, for now, let's focus on what is happening in who is trying to go fast. And already setting quick time. Surprise, surprise. Christopher Haser has a pink time against. That means fastest of overall in the second sector. Fastest in the first sector was Dries Van Tor, but hey, let's wait until they've done their flying laps. The target time, 1 minute 32.867 seconds. That was set by Mercedes number 84 in the first thing, but that's also possibly under investigation for exceeding track limits. But let's just talk about the times on the screen. This group of cars should be completing their first flying lap in this session any moment now. Track conditions very much as they were. There's a little light breeze now in the afternoon blowing in from the Adriatic. A little more cloud in the sky than we had this morning.
And also, I mean, compared to yesterday, which was just clear blue sky, so the ambient and track temperature is different to those that were experienced by all these teams when they ran on Friday. And again, that's something they're going to have to make minor adjustments, maybe on the aero principally, and just trying to get the best and consistent tyre temperature to ensure that the tyre performs as it is required to do. But Dries Van Tor comes across the start-finish line.
1:33.4, so that's 6 tenths of a second off. Just want to say, flashing on our timing screens, car number 84, driver, a team manager of that was the car that was fastest. That was from Pereira to the stewards immediately. I don't think we have to guess what that was for, John, but...
No, I know we did see it as we look at the Bentley in the pit lane. We go back to 63 Lamborghini.
Well, that was very
racing, Christian Engelhard and Mirko
Bortolotti, who
was quickest overall of anybody last night with a time that was a 1:32 as well, but not quite so quick as we saw from Frank Pereira. But we don't know whether Mirko used the racetrack or other bits of it. But look at the concentration as he comes through the circuit.
He got better and better through the course of last year. He put in some stunning laps, but at Nürburgring and at Spa, it was just really, really good. I don't think in the end Lamborghini got what they expected out of it, because the Huracan was just so quick from the outset. But if anyone's going to do it, and he's got green sector in the first timing, green in the second timing, so he's improving his time. But wait, Christopher Mies, he's just put in what I thought was going to be a quick lap. It put him third, he's become fourth. So at the moment it's number 90 that's topping this session so far. That's Raffaele Marciello, last year racing in GP2. Now he's nailed his colours to the flag of GT Racing, and welcome.
What is he driving?
You tell me, John.
The brand? Well, it's one of those cars with that three-pointed silver star in the grille. A Mercedes. Again, they are looking very strong. Mirko just kicks the dust as he comes off turn 16. 1:34.012. He'll not be satisfied with that whatsoever. I'm assuming that time has been done on the set of tyres that the car ran initially. So when Christian Engelhardt did his lap, that tyre is the same tyre that now Mirko bought. I'm just supposing. So let's have a look and see what the Mercedes, as it comes out of turn 16, what are we?
Well, it's fastest at the moment. That's car number 90, and which is Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello. We've just been talking about that. And what was that lap time?
33.5.
Okay, 33.049 in fact for that. So that is now fastest in session, but there's still 2/10 down on the ultimate. Now we saw the Bentley number 7 in the pits very early on. Looks like they're having the tyre change, running completely out of kilter with everyone else. Stephen Kane has yet to set a flying lap, but maybe he'll be on the track when others are coming in for their mid-session change. 59 McLaren, that's of course the one we were talking about earlier. Rob Bell, Andrew Watson had it in the first session, and it's in the hands of Rob Bell, and it's now second fastest, just 1/10 of a second slower than Raffaele Marciello's Mercedes. So Rob right on it, and he was really not sure how many times he was prepared to go out over the curbing. He knows if he doesn't, he won't be super quick. If he does, he could have his time removed. It's a tightrope.
Bruce, let's say over-egging a pudding is something that lots of racing drivers are pretty good at. He knows what he has to do. He knows he can't drive around and stay solely on the black stuff. He's going to have to use his intuition, skill, whatever, and run curves in different parts of the track. He's doing it there, coming down into turn 13. But that's a natural thing to do, doing it again coming into turn 14. But that's different to what we're talking about, which is the abuse of the curb and the consequent gain in turn 6 particularly, and now as we come up out of 14 through 15, the final turn onto pit straight, turn 16. So
now this year we've got 4 McLarens. No longer do we have Garage 59. They're all run from Straka Racing. 58 and 59. They're the orange ones with the sort of largely gunmetal grey, the rest of the body, and the other two, 42 and 44, are black with little bits of coloured striping up their flanks.
Not that I want to be a chauvinist, but I have to say I'm very happy to see that Stephen Kane in the number 7 Bentley has now got that car sharing a Vincent Peril up. This is the combined 1 and 2 qualifying sessions. Currently they are second quickest, so both one Bentley certainly very happy. Number 8 Bentley is not registered yet on.
Not in the top 20, but what we have had, the 84 car has gone back into the top of the timesheets. That's last year's champion or joint champion in the overall series, Maxi Boog, 1:32.887. That's 2/100ths of a second off the best time set by his teammate Franck Pereira.
And there's an illustration of what happens coming through turn 13.
88.
88 Mercedes goes as one of the ACA cars again. Felix Randers. Was that Daniel Juncadella? I can't believe it. You wouldn't have thought Juncadella
No,
would be
it's
doing
Serrayas, who's mainly
Serrayas.
been a single-seater racer in Formula 3 and, of course, Indy Lights for years, but that's a very gentle glissade.
Well, it's also not a part of the racetrack that you would expect, or I have seen a car getting out of shape. Maybe he was trying to keep out of somebody's way. We didn't catch the very beginning of it. But there is the car now making its way through the exit of turn 6, but that will have done that set of tyres no good whatsoever, and particularly if there's any flat spots on 1 or 4 of the tyres, it will be a set of tyres that you will have to really struggle to get into a condition that would be worthy of being used.
Just looking for any changes on the charts, and now top, it is the other McLaren crew, if you will, the darker ones. It's 42, that's Nick Leventis, and that'll be Lewis Williamson. Came across, he joined the Straka Racing for the second half of last year's LMP2 season of the World Endurance Championship. Very quick, he's always been short on money. Really impressed, and now he's with Straka Racing leading their McLaren attack. 1:32.794, the fastest lap of all.
Absolutely.
So far.
Oh, now again, the Audi number 1 going very, very wide coming on 2, and is that going to be? Well, we saw Enzo Ede in the car, so that's going to be Christopher Mies. So that's
12th.
The time he's got to be very, very careful. Now we mentioned from last year the way the BOP works, and there's also a sort of a mean average weight, as we see Marcus Winkelhoff studying timing and scoring. So normally when Christopher Mies is in that number 1 Audi, he technically has got a small weight advantage over the other Audi users, but still the number 1 Audi is only all the way down with the combined first and second, only in 14th position.
Just saw Marcel Fessler watching on the number 2 crew. That's the car shared by Marcus Winkelhock and now in the hands of Will Stevens. That is trying to get in the mix. Also outside the top dozen,
absolutely.
but we've got McLaren from Mercedes, from Lamborghini, and then Dries Van Tor. That's 84. That's second fastest at the moment. That's just set the fastest first sector of all. You can see the peak time at the bottom of your screen.
That's what I was pointing at.
Yeah.
So we've got
Maximilian. And he's been moved back because Dominic Baumann in the 86 sister car has gone into second place. Still, it's the McLaren on top.
But this car has yet to finish his lap. It's gone fastest overall sector 1, personal best sector 2. Looks to have a relatively clear track ahead of just this one car, but that's not going to come into play for young German Maximilian Buch, so he will be able to complete this lap with a clear track and no aerodynamic interference from the wash. Runs very wide coming through turn 15. Now that's again getting to the outer limits once acceptable. Slides the car, dirt traction on the edge of the 16, comes across the start line, and this lap will be, it is an improvement, 1:32.4, but I think the stewards, the race director, might have a little look at some of the corner exits.
So 4 and a bit minutes remaining, but that lap we feel may be pinged. But at the moment he's fastest by 0.273 of a second. I was going to say over Lewis Williamson, but now it's over number 75. The times are changing fast. Philip Salicada in the ISR Audi came from nowhere. He was outside the top dozen, then bang, a really good lap from him. Fastest final sector of all, 0.273 of a second down. So we were just saying the Audis weren't really in the mix, or certainly they're coming from Belgian Audi Club, and then boomf.
Now the WRT Audis have not shown strongly, but this is the ISR car for Philippe Salaquada. As we look at the second of the McLaren's 42, this has got to be Alvaro Parent if anybody's going to drive it like, 42, I beg your pardon, still Lewis Williamson. So can this car do anything further to see if it can improve its currently the last lap of 1:33.1?
No, it's he's still got 3 on the windscreen. There's our guy.
What Lewis Williamson's going to have to learn, and will learn, is that actually after 2 laps the peak performance from the tyre, from a new tyre, will begin to drop off. It will then plateau and remain consistent for basically the duration of either first or second stints in the 1 hour race for the 2 sectors.
But what I think we're already seeing in this session is that on the 2016 Pirellis, they did their 2 really good, strong flying laps, and there was nothing that much left in the tyre. No likelihood of improving on one later in the session. But here, the drivers feel they are, and they're all pretty much still out on the track.
I have to say, watching Lewis Williamson in the McLaren, I thought the tyre had gone. Whoa, who's that gone in the McLaren? Is that Lewis Williamson again?
No, that's the sister car. That's the orange stripes.
Way wide coming out
Johnny
of turn
Kane,
60.
I think.
Well, I mean, Johnny Kane, very conservative normally in his driving, but that was certainly right off the outside of the racetrack.
Yeah, he's down in 18th place. Now, Ferrari 11, this is the car, of course, Pro-Am champions last year, Michel Bronicheski and Giacomo Piccini. They seem to have one thing that most of the drivers don't have on there.
And he's going
nothing ahead of him on the track. What a shame to waste it, but he's keeping as far out of the way as he possibly can.
Well, I think he's going on to a flying lap. He wasn't particularly quick.
Well, he's 10th fastest at the moment. So let's see how he fares up to turn 1.
Yeah, okay, you got to get your braking done in a straight line. You can use the curb on the inside, then get the cut so as you get the maximum acceleration out of 2, because this is just a quick flick through 3. You don't really have to worry very much about it. Running again wide on the exit, but then hard on the brakes into turn 4, followed immediately, and Bronicheski is using a lot of the racetrack and a lot of the other bits as well. Runs wide coming out of turn 6. Very successful as a I would describe, professional driver. Did extremely well all through the last couple of seasons. Now really mixing it amongst what I would call the professional drivers. Ferrari personal best in the first sector, which is very good, but this is going to be difficult runs. Slightly different, takes a single apex through the 2 turns at the far end of the circuit through 9 and 10. Again wide on the exit, now all the way down through turns 11, 12, 13 is the only critical corner. Ferrari picks up speed, 220, 230 kilometers per hour coming down to turn 13, and you've just got to pick your spot and then get yourself committed to get into this turn 14. So nothing special in sector 2, and sometimes you you think you can push and push and push, but actually what you end up doing, overdriving as the Audi goes off. That's done again at turn 13.
Turn 13. Well, we know there's a run waiting. Just want to point out we suddenly have a new runner in second place. Jules Gounon, son of Jean-Marc, really starting to find his form in GT racing. Up to second fastest point, 1:48. Red flags are out because, of course, there's not only dust hampering the driver's visibility, but with just over 20 seconds remaining on the clock, that probably is the end of the session.
Yep.
That Audi very much beat. So it's Maxi Buch top from Jules Gounon in the best of the ECA. Oh, that's...
Well, it just never really looked like he was going to take the corner. And I'm surprised and confused because I've never seen a car in that corner behave in that manner. It was just as if he never really got to turn the wheel, rather distracted, maybe looking at something within the cockpit. And all of a sudden, once he was offline, then it was a matter of just getting the car stopped as safely as possible here, buried in the gravel.
But again, that gives us a chance to see the track from turn 12 at the top of the image down to turn 13. There's the red flag with the Audi beached in the gravel on the outside. The session will not resume, obviously, with so little time left. We now have theoretically 8 minutes until we go out for the top half of the grid.
And you know what's most surprising is car 58, Alvaro Parent, is only 17th. He's just and Christopher Mies and
last year's
not through, so unless we have a revised timing
adjustment
because of timing adjustment.
Turn
in a minute, that's strange.
Turn 6 was where the majority of cars were getting pinged. We thought turn 16 would be as well, but every message on our screen has pretty much been turn 6. That's the left-hand flick after the tight first sequence of corners onto the first of the real straights. It runs in the opposite direction to the pit straight down to the hairpin. So how many times will be readjusted? But what we know at the moment, we have the 84 Mercedes from HTP Motorsport, top of the charts. Last year's overall champion Maxi Buch at the wheel. Jules Gounon for ACA ASP would have put a smile on the face of team owner Jérôme Policon to go second fastest. Third came as if from nowhere, the 66 crew, and that was Max van Splunteren at the end. He's sharing that with Adrian Zaug, so Lamborghini's best runner, not from the GRT Grasser Racing team, but Attempto Racing this time.
The 74 Audi, the one we see beached in the gravel, it didn't get through anyway. That's Frank Stippler. And then Italian driver Kevin Ceccon, that's French maybe. It's a hard C and certainly Italian. There's the car that is quickest overall in the two sessions. Frank Pereira set the time in Sector 1. Now Maximilian Buch has done the same in 2, and it'll be Maximilian Buch as the nominated driver who will go through into this top 17 run out. Now what AMG, or not AMG, but certainly the HTP team are going to do is Brands Hatcher's the next round, sprint round of the Blancpain GT series. So it will be Frank Pereira who will be then nominated. So they're going to rotate to give each driver the fair and reasonable opportunity rather than focusing on one driver who will always be the nominated driver. So that's what the team are planning. And Frank Pereira, we've seen, I mean, he's certainly got tons of speed. Maximilian Buch confirmed it to me.
So what we just saw there was Vincent Abril wafting the door of the number 7 Bentley, strapped in, ready for his run. The final 10 minutes is his teammate Stephen Kay. So a lot of the teams already focused on, as long as they got in the top 17, they've all got an equal chance. So in 17th place, the number 58 McLaren crew have just as much chance. That's Alvaro Parent and Ben Barnicoat as Maxi Buch and his teammate in the 84 Mercedes, which is Frank Pereira. It's all to play for, 10 minutes to go, and this clock will tick round very quickly indeed. I'm sure the Audi number 74 will have been retrieved by now from the gravel. In fact, that could be it coming into the, just wait and see who's coming into the pit lane, but it just looked like a quick pull out. That is outside the top 17.
But whenever they pull the car out, they will pull half the gravel bed with it. So are they going to clean the track at that point, or are they going to leave whatever gravel is pulled onto the track, just leave it there for drivers to come around and not be aware of it and get caught out on it? So there we are. You see, I might be old, but I'm still smart enough to know what needs to be done at a racetrack before this session gets underway. And that's the right thing. That's been the instruction has come from the race director to clear all the gravel that was dragged back on when the Audi was then returning to the pit lane.
John, the instruction came from you. They're all listening to your every word as it should be.
I can't say it.
Now, one of the best things of the circuit here today is a super slow-mo, and best place to put it is on a corner where drivers tend to go wide. This is the fastest car, Maxi Buch, and the driver of the first session, Frank Pereira, but we know the team manager was asked to go and see the stewards immediately. This is the final corner, which will be on the left of the car. And
No, that's
fine.
If they get over the painted red and white curb onto the pure, now that's going to cause a little bit of irritation. The Mercedes was within
Absolutely.
acceptable limits. The Ferrari went beyond that.
So let's hear from the driver of that 84 car. Let's go down. Dakota has caught up with Frank Pereira.
Frank, you and Maxi are looking spectacularly quick in Q1 and Q2. Can you keep this up?
Yeah, I think so. I think we did a really good job on yesterday, both drivers. The car is really going well. I tried to do my job in Q1, but we know that the most important thing is Q2. And no, we are working well together. It's quite good, and I'm really focused now. I think Max will do again a good job, and it's important to be in front, in sprints. So I trust him. I think he will do a perfect job.
And how do you like driving the Merc now? Is it different than the Audi?
Yeah, it's different. You have engine position different, you have a couple of different things, but the car is really amazing. HTP is doing a great job, and I'm really happy to be on the AMG Mercedes.
Many thanks.
Well, good to hear Dakota down there with Frank Pereira, and he hugely impressed us the last couple of years, just got faster and faster, and now I think he could take it to another level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he certainly stood out when he was driving the Porsche. He was driving one of the virtually privately entered cars, not a factory Porsche. And on some occasions he had that car right at the very front of a grid. But then the performance, when the co-driver took over, fell away. He then was in an Audi at different points in 2016. Again, impressed with his raw speed. Now, with HTP, Mercedes, he again has illustrated that talent. And he is clearly an extremely talented driver. And adaptable as well, because you've gone from a Porsche with the engine hanging out the back to an Audi with the engine between the wheels, to a Mercedes-Benz with the engine basically still between the wheels, but in the front of the driver rather than behind. So adaptability, something Frank Pereira's got in spades.
Well, he doesn't have to get busy for a while. Well, not until this evening, because Maxi Book will be driving that car in the final 10-minute shootout for the top 17 cars. And it runs from Maxi at the top down to car number 58. Alvaro Parent will be driving that. And, of course, he's a driver who has an enormous amount of air miles because he's competing for McLaren in the Pirelli World Challenge in the States as well. And he spoke to us yesterday, and he's crisscrossing the Atlantic almost every second or third day at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough schedule. I mean, going to the east coast of the United States is not that bad because you only have a 5-hour time break. But to go to the west coast, it's an 8-hour time break. And you're only there for a few days, then you're back on a plane. And it's another, from the west coast, it's a 10-hour flight, 8-hour time change. Coming back, I always find, was the more difficult way of doing it. But there you can see the corner workers doing an excellent job getting all that gravel that could be a problem for any of the 17 drivers that would be going out very shortly. So just a little bit of gentle conversation going on with Vincent Abril and Stephen Kane, the number 7 Bentley. One of the 2 Bentleys here, both Bentleys retained their driver crews for the respective cars. So that, as I mentioned, along with Enzo Eid and Christopher Mies, another one. But pretty much everywhere else, it's been mixed and matched. And you wonder why. But other drivers, they go on and do different championships. Some are available for endurance, some are available for sprint, and on it goes.
I think it's to keep us on our toes. Those marshals have been very much on their toes. It says 10 minutes at the top of the screen. That is not changing as yet because we're waiting for the session to get underway. Looks like the marshals have done a great job clearing up all the gravel that was dropped effectively at turn 13 as they recovered the number 74 Audi. A few more seconds and minutes than planned. That would be Dries van Tor sitting on board the number 5 Audi. But I noticed that the team manager of that car and the number 2 Audi, to see the stewards after this session, they were the ones that put their cars into the fast lane of the pits before the session was underway. This session is underway. You can see we've started at 10 minutes and are working down, and the first few cars going out onto the circuit. And if anything, the conditions starting to change. The cloud is starting to thin out a little bit, may have a rise in temperature. It could be 1 degree different, could make all the difference, John.
Absolutely. You sort of get a sense that the cloud that had sort of covered the circuit an hour ago is beginning to clear through, and that the ambient might just be building, as you point out, maybe a degree, a couple of degrees, and it might not seem very much to the layman, either sitting at home watching or standing around the racetrack enjoying it, but it does have a significant bearing on how the tyre performs, how the car will react. But I would assume what we're going to see is a 2-lap run from the principal front runners, because they will want, as I said earlier in the broadcast, to retain at least 2 brand new sets of tyres for the race this evening, and then for the race on Sunday afternoon.
17 cars out on track. Well, not exactly true. 17 cars due on track, but we saw the 84 and 85 crew sitting in the pit lane. That's Maxi Book's Mercedes and his team, HCP Motorsport teammate Jules Simkowiak. They're all going to have to try and find their space in the traffic. They've obviously banked on going out towards the end of the session, but it's only 10 minutes in all, and now I think they're about to rumble away. That's the 84 with Maxi Book on board. Not moving anywhere yet. Another car just departing the pit lane in front of it.
What I would be doing is what HTP look to have done. They're splitting their efforts. They're putting out the 86 car early to get out on a racetrack where he will essentially, when he starts his first flying lap, shoot a relatively clear circuit, and then holding back maybe the 84 car and one of the other sister cars. So when these cars that are currently on track have finished their runs, the others then join the track to try and basically split what is a 17 car field into two lots of 8 and 9 and try and have the best opportunity to get that obvious clear flying lap as 86 sort of squirms a little bit under acceleration.
But it's not so bad having one champion sitting in the pit, that's Maxi Book, and the other one out on the circuit at the moment. The driver we're looking at the 86 car, Dominic Baumann, a little squirrely moment, as we call them, over the curbs at the final part of the track. One of the Attempto Lamborghinis tucked in behind, trying to see what it can learn from him.
Well, Lawrence Van Voor has been putting up purple times. Also the number 11, that's the Kessel Racing of Giacomo Piccini. He also putting up purples in Sector 2. So nothing clear. It'll be really only when this Mercedes comes up to the completion of its first flying lap we'll get an indication of what is the out-and-out pace.
Yeah, but how fast is he going? Because
well, not that quick.
Because the car behind one of the Attemptos was weaving from side to side. Marco Mappelli, third fastest in the first session.
Interesting that they've done that, because they may be doing something which is known in the industry as curing the tyre. They're not bringing it up to temperature quickly. They're going to try and do something maybe slightly different, let the tyre get a more consistent and a tyre temperature right through the core of the tyre, through the rim, part of which is also, of course, generated by the braking in these cars. So you get the surface temperature, you get the core temperature coming from the brakes, building up through the tyre. Maybe, that's all I can think. But certainly now, Dominic Baumann looks like he is on it. He's got personal bests in sectors 1 and 2, but this is his first flying lap, and he would, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and who set the fastest first segment time of all? It's the Pro-Am runner. It's Giacomo Piccini. That has now just been bettered by Raffaele Marciello. Oh, fantastic over the curve. Just that little bit beyond. Looks to be under control. Waiting for the first serious flying lap. And how good is it? 1 minute 35.02.
Well, that's not a serious flying lap. As we said, we think that maybe a slightly different approach to not hammer the tyre on the first flying lap. Wait and see.
First serious flying lap, 1 minute 32.7. Very quick indeed. That's Felix Sarayes in the number 88 ACA ASP Mercedes. So he's really getting stuck in, the Puerto Rican racer, stuck into GTs.
Yeah, everybody else is doing a time almost 2.5 to 3 seconds slower, but the 88 Mercedes hard on it, and a strong lap, 132.7. That's a lap he would be satisfied with.
Yeah, and a very good lap just been put in by Will Stevens, the number 2 Audi. Let's see, Giacomo Piccini, he goes third fastest, 1 minute 33.4, so he's 7/10 of a second out. It's changing very fast, but that target time by the 88 Mercedes looking very strong indeed. And this is Raffaele Marciello in one of the sister ACA ASP Mercedes coming out of the final corner. Has he got nice colours on his screen? Just looking to see where that's going to slot him in. He goes top.
Yeah, 132.6. Car looked very good, as we see the 59 Alvaro Parent McLaren, personal best, fastest overall.
Not the best McLaren, though.
Oh,
he is now.
Rob Bell, not Alvaro Parent. Rob Bell has gone quickest overall, 132.4, yet again the quickest lap of the weekend.
And he just deposed his teammate, Lewis Williamson, this Scottish tyro, who got top, immediately pushed back by Rob Bell. So 0.045 of a second between the McLarens that don't tend to look enormously spectacular. Spectacular seems to be people in Mercedes, but in terms of being effective, and now Maxi Book out onto the circuit. He's a lap or two behind. He's going to be building up his speed, but at the moment, I was going to say it's McLaren 1-2. It's not. It's McLaren's 1 and 3. It's the 66 entry, which is Marco Mappelli in his Attempto Racing Lamborghini slotting it in. It's fantastic, John. These mix of manufacturers. Mercedes think they're on the high shelf and everyone's got to chase them, but are they? We'll find out.
We saw 22 cars last night covered by less than a second. So some teams have opted to go out early. Some teams have split their options. Some teams are going out late. This is the car really we want to keep a focus on. Maximilian Book comes down now into turn 8. Everything looks reasonably in control. No abuse of the exit of the corner. So he's got a personal best sector 1. He needs a purple or more than one purple to see that that car will be capable. And as right now, it's Dries Van Thor that's got fastest sector time overall. Rob Bell has fastest sector time overall in sector 2. And we're waiting to see whether this number 84 Mercedes with Maximilian Buch behind the wheel, only personal best, still not a purple, and that will be concerning to the HTP team because he's only got one sector remaining, and it's going to be very difficult. Oh, Maxi, you blew it, you've blown it.
It's one thing shouting at a driver, show us your sponsors, but don't have to turn your car sideways to do it. But that was wonderfully caught by the camera crew out there. And that shows how on edge they are on these Pirellis as they try and find exactly where the edge is. New for 2017, it's all a learning process, but you can't say Maxi's not attacking.
Oh, he is attacking, coming out of turn 16 again. Aggressive exit, the car moves around, but see, 86, the sister car, and it was fastest, now it's the 66 once again. That's the
Marco Mappelli in his Lamborghini.
Absolutely.
They weren't really on it, but 86, I thought, well, we had the split thing. 86 was out at the start, 84 and 85, the HTP Mercedes teammates sitting in the pit lane.
It's impossible to follow because with so many cars capable of all matching or improving upon the current fastest time it was some minutes ago, Rob Bell in the McLaren on a 132.4. Now it's Mappelli in the Lamborghini on 132.3 with Dominic Baumann between the McLaren and the Lamborghini.
Well, a 10-minute qualifying session is never long, but this is going by so fast, and we just had a chance to watch there 66, which is Marco Mappelli for Attempto Racing, and he's now seemingly backed off a little bit, but I'm still waiting for another really quick lap from Maxi Buch. Where is he on the timesheets? In 11th place. How fast was he in the opening sector of this lap? He's done his best sector time. Overall, he's just over half a second down on the ultimate pace. Going really fast from 6th place. That's a really spectacular performance from Felix Sarayes. So many years a single-seater racer, and you know, how many drivers can you name from Puerto Rico?
Well, not an awful lot, but I have to say what is interesting is yet again in the Blancpain GT Sprint and Endurance Championship, we're getting more and more drivers looking to GT3 racing as a future career path, something that, you know, maybe their dreams initially were down the single-seater route. That route is being shut off at every angle you can think of, and there are some wonderful opportunities within the GT3 championships around the world, in particular with the Blancpain GT Sprint and Endurance Championships, to have a wonderful racing career.
But how tight is it at the top? The top 7 cars covered by less than a fifth of a second, clear by 1/10 of a second precisely. Marco Mappelli from Dominic Baumann, but then the rest, as Maxi Buch goes into 7th place, getting tighter and tighter. He was late out in the session along with Jules Simkowiak, one of the sister HTP chargers, but at the moment not quite good enough. The clock ticking down to just over 1 minute. 75 Audi, that's down towards the tail end of the group. 14th, Philippe Salacada. He's got a new teammate this year, so again, one of the many changing factors. Clement Schmid, a driver who's been so impressive on the Porsche Super Cup over quite a few years now.
Yeah, and also he's very impressive last year in the Mercedes HTP team. So Salacada comes across start-finish line, currently 14th, and that's where he will remain, starting on the 7th row of the grid. We go back to the 58 McLaren as it makes its way down the back straight. Still to record, I'm looking down to see in the top.
He's
on as Alvaro Porrent, but his personal best only for the Portuguese driver. Now comes out of turn 14.
But so late out into the session, he's only got one lap recorded. That's why he hasn't done a flying lap. This will be his flying lap. We're into the final 30 seconds, and at the moment it's still Lamborghini on top.
If he can get this into the top 6, he'll be happy, I think, with this particular qualifying run.
And I tell you, he'll be very...
58 comes across the line, and where does it start?
Stays last, but now he's got time. He's got to do it all on this lap. The checkered flag is out in 15 seconds. This is his flying lap. At the moment, he's 1.2 seconds off the ultimate pace. But, of course, every sector time he did on that lap was his best. But there's the fastest driver at the moment, clear by 0.085, because Raffaele Marciello is closing in the number 90 ACA ASP Mercedes. At the moment, though, it's still Attempto Racing, it's still Lamborghini. The cars may not have much in the way of a livery. Blue looks as though it's waiting for sponsors to arrive, but a performance like this will really help the Attempto Racing crew.
Back to 42.
Checkered flag is out.
So the 42 McLaren makes its way up to the far end of the circuit, up to turns 9 and 10.
Don't forget, Lewis Williamson, new to GT Racing, was fastest early in the session. Then he was bumped by one of his teammates. He's down in 6th place at the moment, but that first sector was the best he's done to date.
Well, if he can maintain that kind of improvement through sector 2, then he could possibly, he's 0.012 behind the 63 car, the Lamborghini, and
John, if he can find a fifth of a second, he's on pole position.
Fifth of a second.
That's all he needs.
Is that all?
In fact, a fifth of a second covers the top 7 cars at the moment.
It's close.
Felix Arraez has completed his run. He's in 7th place. It's still Marco Mappelli on top, but what can Lewis Williamson do? What's his middle sector? It isn't his best. He may be able to pick up a position or two. He's out of the final corner. He's stayed within the confines of the circuit. Will he move up a position or two? 1 minute 32.484. Oh, he's a 100th of a second slower, so he stays in 6th position. Any late charges? Don't forget Alvaro Parent came out so late. Where is he on the timing screens?
13th. 132.8 against the sister car 132.4. Has the old guard begun to find a challenge within the team, the Straka Racing team, who are running effectively? It's 2 teams within one. There's the orange, which is maybe the traditional, what you might call Garage 59 team, and the other coloured McLarens, which are now essentially the Straka, but they're all running under the Straka banner. Who made those big black marks? I wonder, that didn't come from what I have seen in the qualifying of this segment. Maybe some of the other cars, other series that are running here. You might have been having a look at that, Bruce. Any ideas? No.
It might have been. I might have been doing some research. But anyhow, let me tell you, at the end of that scintillating first qualifying session of the season, we didn't talk too much about Bentleys. There they are, 8 and 7 running around together. But 8 is down slowest of all, and 7 is 9th. But it belongs not to HTP Motorsport, but it belongs to Attempto Racing, because top of the timesheet, 66, Marco Mappelli. Boy, how close was it? All the top 17 covered by 0.8 of a second. The top half second covered the top 12. But let us hear now, in a handful of seconds, the pole car 66. Let's hear from Giovanni Venturini.
Giovanni, pole for you in a Lamborghini in Italy. You've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, it's our first pole, and what can I say? Marco did an impressive job, all the team, because the car was really quite perfect. So wonderful. I mean, in Italy, with all my parents, all my friends, we are P1. I mean, we have to see the race of tonight, you know, but the start is, I like it.
Well, congratulations. We'll be looking out for you in that Lamborghini later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and isn't it good to see that not only the Grasser Racing team, which have been the base of the Huracan development, but now attempt to really getting on top of this Huracan, and a very impressive run, and just, you know, the car just looks really well balanced, as was just expressed in that interview.
You know, one of the things on Marco Mappelli's fastest lap, I thought he was slowing down. He was so super smooth. We saw Maxi Book out over the curbs,
yes,
and wild, but the car that was fastest, 1 minute 32.319. Look how close those times are. But Giovanni Venturini, just heard from him, Marco Mappelli in pole, first blood to them. Then Franck Pereira and Maxi Book, what a strong pairing, second place. They went out late in the session, still delivered. Michael Meadows and Raffaele Marciello, welcome to GT Racing. What style for him, third fastest. Jimmy Eriksson and Dominic Baumann, another super strong Mercedes pairing, fourth fastest. Andrew Watson and Rob Bell. Well, they've shown they can deliver today, haven't they? But they've got it all to do, and it starts this very evening. Of course, the first race of the championship will start after dark at Misano. Bentley, number 8, all the way down in 17th place. They've got a lot to do, but don't forget, number 1 on the side of one of the Audis, of course, last year's championship crew, they didn't even get into the top half of the grid for the shootout. So Enzo Ida and his teammate Christopher Mies have a lot to do, as to Souley and Suchek. What a fantastic start to the season, John.
I mean, that was as frantic as it can get, and you could see what happened with Maxi Book, who normally doesn't drive as forcefully as that. For example, threw it away coming down to the end of his first lap in turn 13. Effectively, that ruined his chances. I mean, when you've got a driver saying the balance of a car is that good, then you realise how good it is.
Well, a driver who is super quick on track is super quick back to the pits. Let's hear from our poleman, Marco Mappelli.
Marco, the man on pole, you've got to be so happy. That was really quick driving.
Oh yeah, it's home race for me and for Lamborghini as well. So the team did a great job during the winter. So we expect to continue like this during the season.
Now, are you running at max, or do you have anything left to push for the race?
No, everything I got. I'm feeling clear and I have nothing left actually.
Well, good luck for the race.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Well, we talked about changes of driver pairings. Just hearing there from the driver who took pole position, Marco Mappelli. Well, you can't predict what's ahead of us, but certainly the Attempto crew really got on top of that and delivered with Marco. But he's been racing GTs for a long time now.
But Bruce
found the sweet spot.
But remember, we've seen one segment now of what it's all about. We look back at some of the highlights of this qualifying session.
Well, it was busy out on circuit and busy out beyond the circuit. That's the number 19 crew. going to match his car to the grass, but you had to stay on the track to succeed. That's Norbert Siedler and Ezekiel Perez Companc getting it wrong, but the 84 Mercedes crew didn't get very much wrong at all. Now a lot of drivers were running out over the curbs at turn 16 and turn 6 and getting pinged. 98 BMW out a little bit wide, not too bad, but Philippe watching on from the BMW pits. And the McLarens started to really come good through the course of the session. These 8 manufacturers, 34 cars out tilting for glory. 5 and 2 Audis possibly getting in the fast lane a bit too early. And then we saw the most extraordinary spin from the 88 Mercedes. It didn't affect it too badly because Felix Sarayes came back and delivered big time in qualifying. Last year's champions, I beg your pardon, in the sprint series, Enzo Ida and Christopher Mies didn't end up in the top half, didn't go out in the final session. The 74 Audi we saw spinning off, and then we got down to the serious stuff. We came into the top half of the grid, 17 cars shooting out over 10 minutes for glory, and the number 11 Pro-Am class leader Michał Broniczewski was very impressive indeed. But when push came to shove, it was super tight at the top. HTP Motorsport, Maxi Boot, slight mistake there. That was to deny him pole position. But the honours overall went to Attempter Racing and the man who took the lap, Marco Mappelli.